Peer review is an important aspect of the academic research conduct and research publication process. Generally, beginner researchers or junior researchers need to know about the process of peer review as an important component of the process of research publications. So what is peer review? Why is there need for peer review in the publication process, and what is the general process of peer review? These are questions that we will briefly respond to. So first, peer review. What is peer review? Generally, peer review is a process where experts in the field actually evaluate the research papers that are produced by researchers for quality, for validity, and for originality. So you can say that this review process evaluates research papers or research reports in order to ensure that they are quality papers, that the research is conducted using valid methodologies, and that the research has originally contributed to the field. That is why a review of the expert is important before research reports or research papers find space in good quality academic research journals. Now, the experts that review these papers are called peers, and their primary role is basically to examine the study. For example, they examine the aims and objectives of the study. They examine the research questions, the authenticity of the research questions, the interest, the usefulness of the research questions, hypotheses that are possibly included in the research paper, the methodology, especially they focus on methodologies that have been used in order to conduct the research. They also critically evaluate the findings and the relevance of the findings to the field in order to ensure that it meets the standards of the journal or the standards of the field in which the study has been conducted. Generally, the peer review process involves the generally editors of the research journals or research publications. So these editors then send these papers to anonymous reviewers who provide feedback, and in many cases they might ask for revisions or for acceptance. They might recommend acceptance of the papers or rejection, or they might recommend review. So now the second question is, why is it important that we have peer review as an important component of the academic publication process? So first of all, peer review is important because it helps in ensuring quality, or you can say peer review helps in quality control. It helps in filtering out low quality or inaccurate research processes or research reports. Thus, the first thing that the peer review does is basically maintaining high standards in scientific literature. Secondly, peer review process is important because it adds to the credibility of the research process and output. So peer review studies are considered more trustworthy in comparison to those that are not peer reviewed, because these studies, the processes and outcomes have been validated by experts. Thirdly, feedback for improvement. So generally the aim of peer review is not to actually reject the research manuscripts, but actually to give feedback for further improvement of the papers or the research reports. So generally authors receive constructive feedback to refine their work, to aid to the authenticity of their work, and to improve rigor and clarity. Next, peer review plays the role of gatekeeping. So you can say peer reviewers are gatekeepers who ensure the quality of the research produced in a particular field. The process generally ensures that research that is original, that provides original insights into is actually gets published, research that is significant, that has added to the theory and practice in the field, and research that is based on novel or new areas, or research that has filled gap areas, important gap areas in particular fields. So that is why these are some of the main reasons because of which we need the peer review process. Now, what is the general peer review process? So first of all, the authors need to submit the paper or the manuscript to a journal or to a research publication. So the first thing that happens is that the editors, who too are important stakeholders and experts generally in the field, that comes in the scope of their journals or their publication, they have a look at the paper and they check if the paper aligns with the journal's scope and meets basic quality standards. Once they are satisfied that this is the case, they then select reviewers in line with the research topic, the research methodology of the paper, and so the editors assign experts in the field who review the paper. Generally, there are two or more than two. In some cases, it could be more than three reviewers who are sent the paper for review. The review process, the practical review process is that reviewers evaluate the manuscript, then they have certain criteria on the basis of which they judge the value of the paper. Some of the criteria could come from the journal, and some of the criteria could be from the reviewers in the light of their expertise and knowledge in the field. So generally they review the paper keeping in view aspects such as the originality of the paper, the validity and reliability of the research methodology used, the clarity of the results and the substance of the results, and also the significance of the conclusion. The reviewers also look for critical analysis inside the paper, such as in the discussion sections. They also critically evaluate the outcomes of the paper, the recommendations of the paper, or the implications of the paper. And if they find that all of these processes, all of the aspects have come through rigorous process and they are substantial and robust, they will generally accept the paper. Now, once the review process is complete, what happens is that the reviewers then come up with their feedback and decision. Reviewers can either accept the paper without any changes, and this generally happens in rare cases. So generally the first round acceptance of the papers is quite limited and quite rare. However, if the studies are exceptional, if the authors have fulfilled all the quality criteria in terms of conducting the research and in terms of presenting the research, acceptance in the first round can happen. In most cases, revisions are required. So authors may need to address reviewers' comments, and so these comments could be minor, these could be major. In both cases, reviewers, the authors need to address those comments. Those comments are sent by the editors to the authors for possible review. In some cases, if the manuscript does not meet the necessary standards or the minimum standards required in a particular field or by a particular journal, that means that they are below standard, and so they might lack novelty, and the reviewers might find that the paper is not adding to the field substantially. In that case, the papers could get rejection. And so if the paper is accepted, the next thing after the first review or the second or the third whatever happens, if the paper is finally accepted by the reviewers, the journal then accepts the paper for the process of publication. Again, there might be editorial checks in terms of format, in terms of language, and things like that. And ultimately, after the review process, the paper is published, and such papers that go through the rigorous review process and are published are generally considered authentic papers. They are considered good quality research papers. So that is why the review process is extremely important, and especially for junior researchers, it is important that they understand the process of research review. They also need to understand that it's a time-taking process. They also need to understand that they generally they learn a lot during the review process. They get questions and reviews that make them think more critically about their research processes and the research reports. So overall, the review process is the peer review process is extremely important in terms of ensuring quality control in the process of research publications.